Hello and welcome to the Sociology Show podcast. Would you like to start by telling us who you are and what you do, please?
My name is Paula Wright. I'm a writer, a Darwinian scholar and researcher, and I basically have made it my, my thing to look at and feminist premises and see how robust and logical they are in the real world and how they actually, if they do actually improve women's lives. Yeah.
Thank you, Paula. And I always ask people why that area of interest, why that area of expertise, what led you down that path to that sort of route, if you like?
Yeah, well, I began, like most people, as a liberal feminist, what I thought was a liberal feminist. You know, I believe in egalitarian values, the equality of the sexes before the law and all that kind of thing. And I was kind of late to academia. I didn't get my first degree till I was like 34. And so, yeah, I was introduced to a lot of feminist theory. And I was also kind of introduced at the same time to evolutionary psychology. And I thought that evolutionary psychology was, absolutely, that bringing the two together would actually make feminism much more robust. Because, within evolutionary psychology, within evolution itself, the mechanism of female choice is one of, the most powerful selective mechanisms in the universe. And I thought, adding that to feminism would just, and getting rid of most of the kind of tired, kind of old ideological stuff from the 60s, which really hasn't done much for women at all. And actually just bringing it into a kind of more kind of empirical science environment would be better for women. And then this was about the 90s. Was it? No, I'm talking about the noughties. And yeah, I found out it wasn't very popular amongst feminists, and I kind of wondered why, because it did just make, it got rid of weak feminist premises and made, strong feminist premises even stronger. And so I kind of really began to kind of see that, feminists were more kind of aligned to an ideology rather than an empirical kind of scientific progression, if you like.
Yeah.
So it was kind of stuck. All kind of answers were answered by the same question, which was kind of, it's the patriarchy is stupid. And I found the idea of the patriarchy from an evolutionary perspective as well much more complex than feminism was kind of presenting. So that was going to be my PhD thesis, kind of looking at an evolutionary perspective of patriarchy and looking specifically at the role of women in maintaining and creating hierarchies in patriarchy. Because, as I say, evolution kind of like doesn't see women as passive, animals kind of just waiting for life to happen to them. It explains them as really active, dynamic players in the evolutionary game. But it's, over the years, I've kind of seen that feminism doesn't really want to see that kind of view of women at all. And also and looking, into it as well, the idea of liberal feminism kind of was a very short-lived idea that Betty Friedan had in the 60s and late 60s, basically. It had died, I think, by 1970. But yet it's still kind of brought out of the hat, this kind of idea of equality between the sexes, to promote a feminism that doesn't actually believe in equality or egalitarianism. It's more kind of equity, kind of leveling playing fields, leveling hierarchies, and it's definitely kind of anti-female choice. And you just have to look at choice feminism and how choice feminism is such a dirty word amongst all feminists, really. And I know there's lots and lots of feminisms, and I've analysed that. I've if you look on my blog, I've analysed kind of not the differences between them, because there's millions of differences, but what they all agree on, all the feminists, all the feminisms agree on, is in patriarchy theory. And as such, that's the weakest for me, that's the thing that lets them down, because all the answers to all society's problems are dismantling patriarchy. And well, as I say, looking at the feminist conception of patriarchy, it's not sufficient to explain, the dynamism and complexity of the culture we see around us. Yeah.
I've now got 1,000,001 questions. I was stuff down as you were speaking there. If I could unpack a few of those bits then. As you said, the fundamental sort of core belief of feminism is this idea of patriarchy. And many would subscribe to that. So what do you think that theory, or where does that theory go wrong in terms of describing that we live in a patriarchal society?
Well, first and foremost, let me think. Well, obviously, because as feminists conceive of it, either as, as a kind of creation or an ahistorical state of affairs or whatever, it basically explains the oppression of women by men. That's the kind of superstructure of oppression. For all women are oppressed by men via the mechanism of patriarchy. And it's clear, looking around the world, certainly in the West, that a lot of women aren't actually oppressed at all. And yes, we're different, but again, then that comes in that kind of, if women can choose what they want to do with their lives, yes, there are different outcomes for men and women, and there's a crossover in the middle. I'm not a very typical woman, and I was a tomboy when I was a kid and all that kind of thing. But most men and most women actually want to have a family, just want to get on, live their lives and be left alone, kind of thing. A very small percentage of people kind of want to get into the philosophy game and think about things and seek truth, and most people just don't give a beep about that at all. All right, they just want to, and they want to go out on Friday nights. I'm from a working class background, nobody gives another beep about that kind of thing. So yeah, there's that, but it's also looking at female dynamics and strategies of competition. And again, looking around the world, in the most patriarchal societies, we see that women absolutely are the ones, even more so than men, that uphold those things, like female circumcision and things like that. It's the women of the tribes that kind of perform that, and slut shame, and in marriages, mothers-in-law absolutely brutal. They treat their daughters-in-law like slaves, basically. So the only explanation feminism has for that kind of thing is internalized misogyny, which again, it leaves more questions than not, because again, it kind of leaves women as these kind of dumb automatons that are just kind of being socialized into roles and told that socialized into hating other women, as if women don't, as individuals, don't have their own agency. And that's a kind of thing about feminism as well. It's a kind of group kind of organization, rather, that kind of looks down on individuality, and that actually mirrors what we know about female psychology as a whole. So feminism kind of seems to actually be a manifestation, if you like, of female psychology itself, of trying to kind of get to prioritize the group, prioritize equality, the idea of equality, while not actually being very well. We can see around the state of feminisms and the kind of the absolute kind of massive turf war going on between intersectional feminism and radical feminism for ownership of the feminist brand. Even if we just look at those are the two major ones, and the fighting going on there, they don't agree actually on very much. And yeah, we need an evolutionary perspective, an ecological evolutionary perspective, especially, which includes culture, is so much more kind of exciting, enlightening, and fascinating, really, than just it's the patriarchy, stupid.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I, as a sociologist, I say this myself anyway, but sociology is often guilty of assuming everything's socially constructed, right? So,
Mhm.
um, but that blindly ignores that biologically men and women are different with different drives and so on as well.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered why sociology as a discipline is so reluctant to accept that. You know, this idea that we can be completely equal is a fallacy, is it not?
It is. It is. Yes. Because I mean, it's ironic, but variation, is one of the engines of evolution. And leftist sociologists seem to like the idea of what do they call it? Diversity, but then reject evolutionary variation, which means that not everyone is born equal with the same talents and propensities as everybody else, and that people's lives have different outcomes based on those kind of innate kind of propensities, which are influenced by, of course, the culture that they grow up in and environments that they grow up in. If they're full of pathogens, if they grow up in a rich kind of environment like the West, where we live in kind of ecological release, or you're born in a country where the ecological pressures are still really quite brutal, which by the way are where the most strict patriarchies are, and I don't think that's I think that correlation is interesting and gives us some kind of insight into what patriarchy is. But it's not really an oppression of male against female. It's about families, kin groups, communities fighting to stay alive, fighting mostly against the environments around them, and protecting the things that matter for their fitness in those environments.
Why do you
But
think...
oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead. Yeah.
I was just in one of the essays, I looked at it, because in the 60s, maybe it was the 50s, feminists started to kind of create social constructionism.
Yeah.
And they did that just as a response against objectivism and the scientific method. They didn't test it. They just created it because it was the opposite of, and the scientific method has kind of been built bottom up, trial by error for hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe at least 1,000 years, I don't know. And social constructionism kind of came around in about 30 years without really any testing. Well, and it wasn't even looking for kind of truth or verification, or, it was looking for falsification or that kind of thing. So they adopted it. They adopted this idea, not because it was a better model, but they adopted it simply because it was contra to what they were standing against.
Yeah. One of the things that the point I was just going to make is a lot of branches of feminism perhaps do accept that there is biological difference.
There are.
We can be on an even platform socially and politically, financially, economically. Where does that argument stand with yourself? Can those things be achieved even if the biological can't?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, in on an equal foot, you mean egalitarianism?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we do. We kind of live in that in the West now. We have the same rights, just because we don't have the same outcomes, doesn't mean that nobody's forcing. I mean, a feminist would say, but women are socialized not to want to ask for pay rises and stuff like that. And it's kind of, again, it just begs far too many questions other than, and again, if you look at the studies from Scandinavia, the most feminist countries in the world, where female choice actually allows, I mean, it is a proper kind of, I guess, a liberalist feminism over there, because it's not actually imposing a kind of progressive, intersectional or radical feminist ideology onto people. They can make those choices, and the outcome is still the same. Women want to look after their kids more than men do, which is actually profoundly smart in an evolutionary sense, because you don't want to hand over, something that you've built, literally from the bottom up, you know, it's like if you think about a guy in a garage with these kit car, and he's building it up, and he's spending, you know, every second of the day kind of like nurturing and polishing and getting everything right, and then his wife comes in and goes, "Oh, look after that, you know, I'll take that out for a spin." He's like, "No, no, you know, yeah, this is too precious, you know, I'm gonna." So I mean, that's a bit of a funny analogy, but that's the kind of thing. That's why women, you know, even if men are given equal opportunity to do childcare, certainly in the infant years, women want to keep their infants close to them, because, you know, they are just more attuned to risk and danger for sound evolutionary reasons as well, because they've put so much effort, and not just kind of effort in time and attention, you know, from their eggs up, you know, women invest much more in offspring. And that's the parental, obviously the parental differential theory. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's something that's very close to my heart at the moment. I've got a 5-month-old.
Yeah.
Myself and my partner are trying to do everything as equal as we can. We're both on parental leave, actually.
Yeah.
We both take her to classes, and we both take her out and so on as well. But it really has struck me that there is certain things that I just can't do. I can't breastfeed. And at some point, the baby wants breastfeeding. So even sort of if I offer the baby the bottle in the middle of the night, the baby will want mother more than father.
Yeah, yeah.
What I found really interesting as well is that we have an NCT group. I'm the only father that's taking extended leave, actually. All the other fathers have gone back to work and mother stayed at home.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found really interesting is it's actually more on the side of the mother. They've said, well, actually, this is my 6 month or my year off. I'm not sharing that. I'm not sharing my husband. That's mine. So if that is the case, we then can't criticize or complain what's happening with careers, can we? Because
no, I mean the pay gap, the pay gap is kind of calculated on, you know, there's no context in it or whatever. It's kind of based on a money in, money out kind of algorithm that doesn't take into account the amount of hours worked, you know, the amount of flexi time, all this kind of thing. Yeah. So no, we can't really, you know, let women, you know, once feminists say that women are oppressed by the patriarchy, but I don't know, sometimes it seems more like women are oppressed by feminism. And the ideas that feminism are trying to impose on women, rather than the other way, certainly in the West.
Yeah.
A little trick I want to ask you, when you put the baby in the car seat, check to see if your wife double checks.
She sits in the back with her.
Does she? That was my thing all the time. It was kind of, okay, you put him in the car seat, and I was like, I have to double check. I'm sorry, it's mine.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's really interesting, because do you think that guilt of, you know, I've heard this from mothers that if they do get back to work, they feel guilty they're not looking after the child, and if they are at home, they worry about their career. Do you think that is a pressure that's coming from feminism then, as opposed to society or something else?
Well, I mean, most couples, both of you have to work now in order to, you know, there's no such thing as a family wage that a man used to have, which was obviously the justification for him earning more for that pay gap before women's liberation, or whatever you want to call it. So most of us have lifestyles where we need both to work. I mean, I kind of did it. As I say, I went to academia, and I actually got pregnant when I was doing my BA, and I was poor, and I didn't have any money to go and do an MA and stuff like that. So I kind of decided, well, I'm gonna bring him up, and I'll do my PhD when I'm 50. God, ladies, don't do that. It was what I didn't understand at the time, you know, was the universal force of entropy would be bearing down on me more than the patriarchy by the time I was 50. But so yeah, but I mean, it depends. I mean, a lot of, obviously, there's something the feminist Betty Friedan got right with the feminist mystique. She got, I mean, it is, the criticisms about it are actually, you know, true. It is achingly white and middle class. You know, no one in my family, you know, back to mitochondrial Eve, will ever have had to give up work when they got married, or when they got pair bonded, or when they had a baby. You know, you just had to kind of keep on going. So yeah, one thing the feminist mystique did get right is that there is a difference between domesticity and motherhood. And domesticity is dull, is mind-numbingly boring, and soul-destroying, right? Motherhood isn't. And that's a dilemma. I don't know. I don't know, we can try to fix, I don't know. I think if it's possible to fix, because I mean, as soon as you have a child, you do give up part of your autonomy to this thing that depends on you and is going to be there for, you know, at least 18 years. I mean, I had a terrible mother, so I wanted to be especially good mother. At least I wanted to be there for him. And so I kind of made that conscious choice. It hasn't always been easy, because you know, I do kind of dabble around in philosophy and thinking about stuff like that. And it's at times, you know, when working as a cleaner or working, you know, in a bar, and just kind of seeing the years kind of pass away and stuff. It's kind of more about restructuring. I think when I was doing my BA, I had a friend from Norway, and she already had a baby, and I got pregnant, and then she got pregnant. We finished our BA and she went back to Norway, and they had family dorms. Now she continued her education. Her and her partner moved into these family dorms with their 2 kids. And, you know, her career is just, but there are no such things as family dorms in England and in the US. And I wonder why that is, because, you know, if people were allowed to kind of pursue that kind of thing while they were doing their education, living in family units, it would probably solve a lot of the alcohol problems, or, you know, but then it would make them less open to, I don't know, ideological indoctrination as well. So I don't know why feminists are not actually pushing for that, because if they were on the side of women, they would be.
It kind of relates to this, because one of the expressions that I've seen quite a lot in feminism is about the oppression of motherhood, or the burden of motherhood. And I heard someone say, forgive me, I can't remember who said, they really challenged that and said, motherhood is an absolute honor. It's hard work. It's really, really difficult. It's extremely demanding, but to see your child grow, to hear their first words, to see their first steps is an absolute honor. And a lot of men actually miss out on that, and they're at work and they miss out on what could be the most rewarding aspect of life in general. So actually, could you flip it? Could it actually be the men that are experiencing some sort of oppression by missing out on what could be argued as the best thing in life?
I don't know. I don't think it would probably be the best thing in life for them. I think the best thing in life for them would be creating a safe, secure environment for their loved and vulnerable ones. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's lovely to be there, but I think evolutionarily, I think it's more important for men to create that environment where they're going to be safe. I'm not going to say that they're not going to, you know, enjoy it when they're there and stuff like that, but I think they're going to sleep more at night, kind of knowing that they've got, you know, secure windows and doors, and, you know, they can give them everything they need in order to thrive.
Yeah. It just made me think of 2 things. Firstly, I've got some pigeons nesting on my balcony at the moment. I can hear in the background. The mother is sat on the nest, and the dad keeps going away and bringing back twigs. Maybe that. But the other thing, and you can tell me if this is evolutionary, since baby was born, I've felt an overwhelming need to go and provide. I've taken on work, I've taken some extra tuition, I'm thinking about other careers that I can do, other ways to sort of garner money. And despite going back to what I said to at the start, that myself and my partner always wanted to do things as equal as possible, I've just got this overwhelming desire to go and Where can I get more money? And
Yeah.
what's going on there, evolutionary? What's going on for me, Paula?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's probably it. What I have to just add a caveat to that and just say, obviously, we talked about variation before. Some people are really bad parents, and some people like in your situation will just go, oh, I can't be bothered with this. I'm going out. I'm going to the pub, and I'm going to spend all my resources down the pub, and I'm going to gamble and that kind of thing. So you're actually, you're a good provider. You're a good, evolutionarily wise. You seem to be kind of doing it right and probably making your partner very secure and that she's made the right decision. I think maybe there's a lot of postnatal depression might be because a woman is not sure that she's made the right decision, is kind of seeing kind of maybe signs that she's not with a good provider, and doesn't know if she's going to bond, if it's worth bonding with the child. Because she might have to just, that's a very deep animalistic kind of instinct that, but I've talked about this as well, that kind of infanticide may actually be part of the mothering instinct itself, and we see that in other species. So yeah.
Talking about that animalistic thing, I'm going to give a really probably poor mundane example, but I wonder if evolutionary biology going on. If you watch any sort of dodgy program like Love Island, Married at First Sight, any of those sort of programs, the overwhelming number of females on there looking for a heterosexual partner will say they want tall, dark, handsome, broad shoulders, strong jawline. If he's rich, that's a bonus. So despite the fact we've had generations and generations of feminism and trying to move towards equality, fundamentally, females want those attributes, don't they?
Well, we know exactly what both men and women want primarily in partners. I don't know. I've never watched Love Island.
Sorry, that's right. It's such a bad example, but
but I can imagine. I mean, my sister-in-law watches Love at First Sight. I would imagine they're kind of choosing on actual short-term scenarios there, and everybody's got fake faces, so I don't know what traits they're kind of choosing from anyway. So reality television seems to correlate with fake faces. It's really bizarre. But yeah, we know what men and women want, and most of them actually are the first. Sorry, I think the top 2 or 3 are actually the same thing, which is mutual attraction, emotional stability. I haven't got the data in front of me now, but this was data done by Buss 20 years ago, and it's recently been they've redone it and confirmed it all again. This is across cultural as well, and so after the top 3, they start to kind of diverge, but they're all still the same things, if they just kind of differ by kind of degree. Do you know what I mean? So it's true that men kind of value attractiveness more, attractiveness and youth, but it's not the fact that women don't kind of discount attractiveness. They just have it less further down the kind of the priority kind of ladder, and that women obviously do kind of give high priority to provisioning and resource kind of management and things like that, and men are less kind of bothered about that down the line. But there's no kind of like black and white kind of thing. It's men and women kind of want the same things, just by different degrees, but ultimately they want somebody they love and who loves them back.
Are we making ourselves, I'm not sure ill's the right word, but because sociology certainly, I think, ignores the biology and ignores the evolutionary and tries to twist it and turn it or even ignore it. Is that not affecting our mental health and our overall happiness?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there's that great paper, what is it, the paradox of increasing female unhappiness, as kind of women's rights have gone up, female happiness and well-being has gone down in the West. And well, it's evolutionary mismatch, isn't it? So we know about that kind of that in the past, when all of these kind of evolutionary traits were kind of laid down thousands of years ago, you know, sugar was not freely available, but it is now. So we glut ourselves on sugar and give ourselves diabetes and die early with heart disease, and there's a certain degree of probably to do with that happening with social media as well, because, you know, we lived in small groups, small kind of until really recently, you know, nobody had hundreds and hundreds of friends, and now we're kind of like in the same kind of way that we're doing with fat and sugar, kind of just consuming far too much than we really know what to do with, and we don't really know what the consequences of that's going to be. I mean, maybe we're just beginning to kind of see it, and so not really concentrating on our nearest and dearest, because our fitness needs can be met by somebody 6,000 miles away, you know, in Portland online. So yeah, I don't really know where that's going to go, but it's certainly in a mismatch, definitely, and there will be consequences, certainly psychologically, and then psychological consequences then have manifest in culture. Yeah.
So this would be brave for a sociologist to come out and say then, well, actually, the best way forward is the traditional roles: man provider, woman as the caregiver. But you know, is there truth in
letting people do what they want?
Yeah, true.
Let people express their individuality, because as I've said, you know, variation is the engine of evolution. If we just let people express who they are, you know, rather than force people into roles, gender roles, work roles, whatever, you know, things would actually fall nicely into place. It's when, you know, great supposedly wise minds try to impose kind of order from the top down, that and bend human nature out of shape and force people into roles that they don't want to. You know, just look at the Cultural Revolution in China that ends in disaster, and, you know, 50 million people dead. That's not a bottom-up phenomena. There are natural disasters, sure, but well, you'd have to have a massive earthquake to have 50 million dead, wouldn't you? So it's arguable that, you know, beyond, you know, that human-made disasters are much more kind of, you know, worse for humanity than natural ones even.
So just to go back to your point, if we do allow freedom of choice to choose to follow the traditional values, non-traditional values, whatever, we're going to have to accept difference of outcome, aren't we? That,
yes,
like you said,
definitely.
Even if you look at Scandinavian countries that try and push equality, men still get paid more money, for example, than women because of the choices they make.
Yeah, and the women certainly, if they're paired up with them, will be saying, get a bloody pay rise. Just ask to go and do it. You know what I mean? And this again is kind of this idea of patriarchy, which is just men oppressing women. Actually, you know, the idea of kind of lots of feminism began as kind of dismantling patriarchy, dismantling the family, dismantling sexuality, now it's dismantling cis. It's just kind of dismantling everything. But you just can't do that. It's another kind of road to hell paved with, I don't know even if it's good intentions anymore. I really don't. But yeah, well, you have to just allow for differential outcomes. We certainly in the West can mitigate unfairness, you know, and certain kind of things, and help the weak, put safety nets there and what have you. But we can't save everybody. We can't. Some people don't want to be saved for a start. You know, look after the weak, have those safety nets, but just you can't level everybody out at the same, because then you're also bringing the great people down and raising the weakest ones up, and you know that's stasis. So is that's like, yeah, that's just not, no, it's not a good idea.
I've just got one final question for you then, Paula. I give that some details. What is the answer? I'm going to be really brave. Should the feminist movement be scrapped, forgotten about? Do we need a new movement, a humanitarian movement, or something different?
Well, I've got an article coming out this week, which kind of talks about, that feminism certainly isn't a movement for women's rights or women's kind of or to help women. It's more of a kind of a political group for people who want to use the term woman to kind of grab kind of political power for and whatever it wants to do that with anyway. And I mean, that's much more that it's obvious now. You could, with intersectional feminists, just dismantling the term woman now. How can feminism just completely detach itself from the word woman and then still pretend that it's promoting women's rights? It's not. There's something going wrong there. And I just say, just look at the actions rather than the words. Yeah, I think feminism is an expression of female psychology, and I don't think we understand that very well. And I think what it is actually, and this was a hypothesis made, I didn't know this, David Buss told me this. I kind of mooted the hypothesis that feminism itself was the arena for female intersexual competition, for women to compete with each other. And David Buss said, somebody said that in the 1978. God, I've forgotten his name now. It's terrible. So I wasn't the first one to come up with that hypothesis, but yeah, I think that's something I'm going to be looking at. And I think cancel culture is manifest in that. I think cancel culture is manifest female intersexual competition. It's kind of taking the covert kind of strategies of competition that women use on average to cancel their rivals, to make them disappear. Literally, it's no less kind of brutal and deadly than male. It's just more covert, and often men are recruited to do the dirty work. But that's another kind of subject. That's a massive subject that I'm going to be writing about soon. So yeah, I think what we should do is begin to look critically at feminists. The way we kind of we look at the priesthood and know that there are bad elements in the priesthood. Just because somebody calls themselves a feminist does not mean that they are working kind of benignly towards some kind of goal for everybody's benefit. Let's just put it that way. We need to look more critically at, what feminism actually does rather than what it says it does.
Thank you, Paula. I'm just aware of time. I'm going to put a link to both your articles and your Twitter as well, so that if people want to find out more, and maybe I could get you back on the show later.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much for your time today, Paula. Really appreciate it.
Okay, right. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.